All right. When two armies are engaged in a conflict, and one of them begins waving a white flag, that's a universal symbol. You know what they're doing. They're giving up the fight. They're admitting defeat. They're surrendering. Now, I'll admit that I don't know if that's how it's really done in wars, but that's how it's done in the movies.
Yeah.
Okay? The white flag means you surrender. You win, I lose. We can also see this in the world of boxing. When one of the fighters is too beat up to continue, what does his manager do? He throws in the towel. The towel says, no more for me, I'm out. At some point in your life, we're all going to have the opportunity to wave the flag or toss in the towel in just about every area of our life. Whether it's our marriage, our job, our financial goals, our weight loss ambitions, even in our effort to live the Christian life, we can reach the point when we're ready to say, that's it. That's all. I'm done. And then we move on to something else, or perhaps move on to nothing else. Warren Wiersbe was a pastor, he was a writer, he was a theologian, and he wrote a whole lot of books. If you go to Wikipedia and type in Warren Wiersbe, you get a whole list of books, probably over 50, I would say. But the title of one of them was Too Soon to Quit. And this book was published when he was 80 years old. And it wasn't even the last book that he had published. He went to be with the Lord at the age of 89 in May of 2019. You could probably say that Warren Wiersbe lived out that book's message. And I have to tell you that I agree with his premise. In any good and worthy endeavor, it's always too soon to quit. There will most likely be challenges, but you have to power through them. Because once you quit, you've eliminated forever the possibility of winning. Like the motto of the lottery, you can't win if you don't play. That's why quitting is fatal every time. But there's something else that's equally as debilitating as throwing in the towel. If the devil can't get you to quit, he'll try to convince you to do this. What is just as detrimental to your life as quitting is thinking about quitting, contemplating it, dwelling on it, obsessing over it. Now, I'm not talking about the fleeting, I ought to turn in my notice kind of impulse that we've all had from time to time. I'm talking about the day in, day out dreading of every detail of a situation while you secretly plan your escape. If your enemy can't get you to quit, he'll do his best to get you to the point where you want to quit, where thoughts of quitting prevent you from giving your all. And if Satan can't destroy your marriage through divorce, for example, he'll seek to destroy it with apathy and hopelessness. If he can't get you to quit your job or quit your ministry or quit going to church, he'll try to get you to quit caring and to quit trying. If he can't defeat you, then he simply tries to deflate you. The Bible refers to this as losing heart in some translations. This phrase appears about a half a dozen times in the New Testament, and every time it's as an exhortation for you to keep going. So I agree with Dr. Wiersbe. When you're involved in a worthy endeavor, it's always too soon to quit. And what's more, it's always too soon to even think about quitting. It's too soon to despair. It's too soon to lose heart, because God hasn't finished the work that He began in each of us. None of us here today are immune to discouragement. We all know what it's like to want to give up. We're not immune to it, but neither are we powerless against it. There's a way to conquer the will to quit, and it can help you to overcome even the greatest moments of despair. With this in mind, tonight I want to look at what it takes to keep us all from losing heart, to prevent us from yielding to despair and discouragement. I would imagine that we'll spend a couple of weeks on this subject here on Wednesday nights. And the purpose is to prevent us from not only throwing in the towel, but from even thinking about throwing in the towel. Because it's always too soon to quit. And it's always too soon to think about it. In this short little series, I guess you could say, we're going to look at 3 verses in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. As well as some other key scriptures. The book of 2 Corinthians was written by the Apostle Paul. If any man had a reason to lose heart, it was probably Paul. His life pretty much consisted of one overwhelming challenge after another. For example, on 5 different occasions, he was beaten with a whip, receiving 39 lashes each time. And the reason he only had 39 lashes was because the custom back then was to give 39 and not 40. They thought that if you gave somebody 40 lashes, that you were going to kill them. 3 times he was beaten with rods. Once he was pelted with stones and left for dead. 3 times he was shipwrecked. Once he spent a day and a night drifting aimlessly at sea. He was also betrayed and abandoned by so-called friends. He was the target of religious hypocrites. He was also the target of hostile government. He was criticized among many of the churches, and he was often broke, cold, and hungry. His life wasn't easy. A lesser man may have given up, like after the first beating. Or maybe even after missing the first meal. But not only did Paul refuse to quit, he refused to even think about quitting. He refused to surrender to despair. He would not, he could not lose heart. And neither should we. It's far too soon to even think about it. So let's look at these 3 verses that are going to be the foundation for this short little series. Paul's writing to the Corinthians. 2 Corinthians 4, verses 16 through 18. It says, "Therefore, we do not give up. Even though our outer person is being destroyed, our inner person is being renewed day by day. For our momentary light affliction is producing for us an absolutely incomparable eternal weight of glory. So we do not focus on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." So tonight I want to focus just on verse 16. There are 3 don't lose heart realities that we all must learn to face down and conquer. And here's the first one. The first reality is life is a daily event. And by daily event, I mean it's a daily challenge. You could even say it's a daily battle. There's a comedian by the name of Gary Goldman who's been very open about his struggles with just excruciating depression. And he said, the thing they don't tell you growing up about life is this. Life, it's every single day. And it may seem mind-bogglingly obvious to say that life is a daily event, But even more mind-boggling is the way that we allow ourselves to believe that it isn't. How many times do we catch ourselves thinking that someday we'll get to the point in life where we're on a cruise, where we're simply on cruise control the rest of the way? Where we've conquered all of our problems and life is perpetually like the last 5 minutes of a feel-good movie. But that never happens. Not for you, not for me, not even for the richest person in the world. If you'll never get to the point where you can say, it's going to be smooth sailing from here on out. Because life is a daily event, which is to say, life is a daily battle. Paul acknowledged this in the first letter that he wrote to the Corinthians. When he's talking about all the turmoil that's going on in his life, he says, I die daily. Or another way to translate that would be, I face death daily. He's saying, in effect, that troubles come every single day. If your objective is to lose weight or to get in better physical shape, you already know that that's a daily challenge. You can't improve your health by doing healthy things only 2 or 3 days out of a 7-day week. If your objective is to strengthen your marriage, you already know that it's an everyday endeavor. You can't just be nice to your spouse 2 or 3 times a week and think that that should be enough. You have to do it every single day. Here's my point. If you want to be the type of person who will never lose heart, who will never yield to despair, you begin with a reality check. You need to remind yourself that the problems of life will come after me every single day. And I need to deal with them every single day. Everybody knows that when we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. But until then, we're in a battle. We're in the trenches. We're face to face with the enemy every day. And that's the way it's going to be until we're no longer on this planet. And here's the second reality that we need to keep in mind. The externals of life are secondary and always will be. Look at the first part of verse 16. It says, therefore, we do not give up, even though our outer person is being destroyed. Now, maybe he's being literal here, or maybe he's just using this as a metaphor when he says our outer person is being destroyed. The NIV says outwardly we are wasting away. What he could be referring to is the punishment that his body has taken over the decades. The stripes, the stones, the hungry days, the sleepless nights. He might be saying, I don't know how much more this old body can actually take because it's wasting away. I think most of us can probably relate to that as we get older. In one way or another, even without the physical persecution that Paul went through, our bodies get tired. Our health takes us on a downward turn. Our energy diminishes. We become increasingly aware that there are fewer days ahead of us than there were behind us. And we also know as we get older that this body that we have doesn't define who we are. I am not my physical limitations. I'm not going to lose heart just because I'm getting older. Because today, I feel more alive than I ever have. Paul could be talking literally here, but there's a good chance that he's speaking in a metaphor when he says outwardly we are wasting away. He's not just talking about the physical body, I think he's also talking about every aspect of life that's in our world. The culture in which we live, the out-of-control situations that we face, the emotional battles that we experience, the attacks from the enemy that we have to continually endure. I think Paul is challenging us to remember that just like the body is not as important as the soul, the external things of this life, the physical things, are not as important as the spiritual things. We're in the world. We have to deal with the things of the world on a daily basis. But as Jesus taught in John 17, we are not of the world. As someone said, this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. If your hope is in the external things of life, what you earn, what you own, what you achieve, you're always going to be susceptible to frequent bouts of discouragement. That's because it's impossible that any of these things would ever be enough, even if you have them in endless supply. And let's face it, endless supply doesn't exist. The externals of life are an ever-moving target, up and down, left and right, here today and there tomorrow. If you've always got to be on the upswing of success to be happy, you're going to find yourself often on the verge of losing heart. This is the second reality check. Many of the things that we spend our lives pursuing don't matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. The external things of life are secondary, and they always will be. It's the intangibles, the invisible things that matter the most. That's what the Apostle John said in John 2, 1 John 2, verses 15 through 17. He said, "Do not love the world or the things that belong to the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in him. For everything that belongs to the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride in one's life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world with its lust is passing away, but the one who does God's will remains forever." And then that brings us to the third reality that each of us need to confront if we want to avoid losing heart. And that is that renewal needs to happen on a daily basis. Again, go back to 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16. "Therefore, we do not give up, even though our outer person is being destroyed. Our inner person is being renewed day by day." Paul said before that he faces death on a daily basis, but he doesn't lose heart because inwardly he is being renewed on a daily basis. Someone once criticized motivational speaker Zig Ziglar, saying that the problem is that motivation simply doesn't last. Mr. Ziglar replied, "No, it doesn't. Neither does bathing. That's why you need to do it on a daily basis." And it's the same with being renewed. It's not a one-day-a-week, Sunday-only event. It needs to happen daily. We have a tendency to run on empty for as long as we can, exhausting every resource until there's nothing left to go on, and a state of emergency sets in. And then we say, "God, give me a break. I need a second wind." If you consistently wait until you're completely winded to take action, if you consistently wait until the tank is empty before you do anything about it, you'll always be on the verge of emotional exhaustion, which will lead to despair, which causes you to lose heart. So today I want to challenge you to embrace this reality check. Commit, like the Apostle Paul, to being inwardly renewed on a day-by-day basis. So how do you do that? Well, in the little bit of time that we have left, I want to discuss quickly 3 strategies for experiencing inward renewal day by day. First, you need to renew your mind. Paul said in the book of Ephesians that you are to be made new in the attitude of your minds. He said that we do that by rejecting who we are, stepping away from our former selves, and focusing on who we are to become, like God in true righteousness and holiness. That's kind of the Reader's Digest condensed version of Ephesians, the whole chapter of 4. So renew your mind, which means to remind yourself on a daily basis that God didn't create you for the purpose of gaining honor and achievements. He created you to be like Jesus, to be conformed to the image of His Son. So how do you experience this renewal of the mind? You take charge of what you see, of what you hear, and of what you say. Quit staring at your phone. It's not an issue that most of you all probably have. Quit reading every toxic piece of propaganda that's disguised as news. Stop binge watching Netflix. Stop listening to music that doesn't build you up. And then refuse to participate in conversations that tear others down. Instead, spend time in the Word. Find uplifting programs to watch. Listen to powerful teaching. And steer every conversation that you have in a positive direction. Make it a point to think only thoughts that are consistent with what you believe about the goodness of God. That's why Paul said in Philippians 4:8, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." And that's hard to do. Don't start thinking that it isn't. But it needs to be done on a daily basis. And then that leads us to the second strategy for renewal, and that is to renew your spirit. You renew your spirit by spending time alone with God each day. That includes, as I mentioned, time in the Word. It also includes time in prayer and time in worship. Earlier I mentioned Warren Wiersbe. He once said, "The most important meeting we as leaders attend is that daily personal meeting with the Lord before the day begins, when worship and meditation increase our faith as we receive the orders for the day." Our time alone with God also includes moments of quiet reflection. The Old Testament word for this was meditation. It's not a complicated process. You just take a few minutes to sit in silence, say nothing, and focus your thoughts on God. Think about His mercy. Think about His grace, His love. Think about His promises. Just think about Him. The psalmist wrote, "Be still and know that I am God." And if you do that, that will renew your mind and it will renew your spirit. And then here's the third strategy for renewal. You need to renew your heart. Another way to say this is give yourself an emotional lift each day. Maybe by spending time with a friend. Maybe by listening to uplifting music. Even watching something appropriate on TV that makes you laugh. If you can find something appropriate. on TV. Norman Cousins was a political journalist who had been diagnosed with a crippling and potentially fatal disease. And when he was told that his chance of recovery was 1 in 500, he developed his own recovery program. And one of the key elements was what he called laugh therapy. He would watch Candid Camera and the Marx Brothers and other funny programs. He discovered that 10 minutes of genuine belly laughter would give him 2 hours of pain-free sleep. That was his way of refreshing his heart. There's an old Irish proverb that says, "A good laugh and a long sleep are the best cures in the doctor's book." That sounds very similar to what Solomon said when he said, "A joyful heart is good medicine." John Maxwell said that some people are fire lighters and some are fire fighters. In other words, there are some people who light the fire of hope in your life, and there are people who think it's their job to snuff out the fire of hope in your life. We should avoid the firefighters and seek out the fire lighters. Spend time with those who are uplifting, who have uplifting attitudes, because that's going to renew your heart. Paul experienced the day-by-day renewal of the heart because he poured his life into relationships. And when he couldn't be with the believers that he loved so much, he thought about them. He prayed for them. He thanked God for them, and he wrote to them. When he wrote to the Romans, he said, "I long to see you so that I may impart to you some spiritual gift to make you strong. That is, that you and I may be mutually encouraged by each other's faith." So I want to encourage you to take time every day to give yourself an emotional lift, a chance to smile, a chance to laugh, a chance to share a good moment with someone who's close to you, so that you build up one another in the Lord. In one of the most beautiful Psalms ever written, David said this about the Lord: "He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul." God wants to lead you every day to a green pasture beside some quiet water. Every day he wants to refresh and restore and renew your soul. When you make it a point to be renewed in him on a daily basis, despair doesn't have a chance. Your resources never get depleted, and you never have to tap into your reserves because your tank is always full. That's why Paul could say, we never lose hope. We certainly have plenty of reason to lose hope and to lose heart, because life is a mess, and it's a never-ending battle, and it's one thing after another, day after day after day. But our hope isn't in the things of this world, and our hope isn't in ourselves. Our hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. Through him, through the power of his resurrection, through the presence of his Holy Spirit, we're renewed every day. Our mind is renewed, our spirit is renewed, and our heart is renewed. We need to let it happen in our life. It's always too soon to quit. And it's always too soon to even think about quitting. Choose instead to be renewed in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit every single day. Take out your prayer sheets.